the most dramatic moment was what brought out the yellow, and that was Chase Elliott running out of fuel. Interesting, DJ. We heard on the broadcast that there was some miscommunication. Well, not really miscommunication between Chase Elliott and the team. The team told Chase Elliott he had this many laps on his reserve tank. And as it turned out, that was an error that the team made. Alan Gustafson, Chase Elliott's crew chief, was asked about this afterward, and he said, that's internal stuff. I'm not going to go over our internal struggles in the media. I'm certainly not going to educate everybody else on what our problem was. But during our broadcast, I thought Steve Letarte did a great job explaining this with the cutaway car that we have. He essentially said that 3 laps meant that Hendrick Motorsports, the number 9 team, needed about 1.7 gallons, almost 2 gallons in that reserve tank. And as Stevie said, there was no way the reserve box would have that much fuel in it. So what did you make, DJ, of this error by the number 9 team? And was it a result of Chase Elliott pretty much feeling as if, hey, I know I've got to win this race or Daytona to make the playoffs? Were he and Alan Gustafson, the whole number 9 team, maybe feeling the pressure a little bit?
I think there's definite, you can put this on feeling the pressure. And I don't think this was the only race that's happened to this driver and this team. Not being in this situation ever, probably, to where they came down to, having to, because they usually have won by now. But they found themselves in a year that has been like no other for Chase Elliott, the driver, or for this race team, with circumstances that they've had to do things and look at things differently. And, quite honestly, they haven't had the speed. And the other thing that you look at is, when you have your teammate, William Byron, running up front, being faster than you in qualifying by a lot, and winning races on a regular basis, that does add pressure. You can try to deflect that as much as you want, but when your teammates are beating you, that's worse than getting outrun by other manufacturers and other teams. And so I think that pressure has had a lot to do with, they realized that, coming to Watkins Glen, they had to win one of the two. The good thing is they still have an opportunity to make the playoffs. There's nothing in my mind that says that Chase Elliott can't go and win at Daytona on Saturday night. Yeah, you have to have a lot to go right. And most of the time you're trying to dodge things that can go wrong in this situation. But, not having to worry about, do we race for stage points? Where do we try to position ourselves? They don't have to worry about any of that. This is simply, give Chase Elliott the best opportunity that we can to be up front, in the latter stages of the race on Saturday night, and let his talents take over from there. Take the fastest car that you can to that point. But I do, when it first started yesterday, I was blown away by the fact that I heard 3 laps. I didn't know that. Steve Letarte, as you pointed out, did a magnificent job once again of educating all of us. The race fans that we have that are watching on NBC and USA, and those of us that have been in the sport a long time, it was fascinating to see and hear all of that and understand it a lot better as to how these systems work. But that was just, I really thought when they pitted as early as they did the first time that they were kind of putting themselves in a box there, that everything had to go perfectly. So it was like they were kind of throwing a Hail Mary right from the very beginning as early as they could.
Yeah, and that was another thing that Gustafson talked about, DJ, is that they left themselves no margin because they had to do this strategy to leapfrog by essentially undercutting the other leaders. They had to pit on lap 17, which was probably a lap or 2 earlier than everybody else. I think actually it was like 3 or 4 laps earlier than McDowell and Byron ended up pitting on. And it worked. Like Chase Elliott went from 13th to 6th by pitting early, but it put them right on that margin. And everybody wants to blame Gustafson. I understand the crew certainly is complicit, but I don't think it can be overlooked that the reason they were in this position was because Chase Elliott qualified 15th.
Right.
And, to your point, like when Byron and Larson are making the final round and you're the guy qualifying 15th, and Chase Elliott owned that. He said, I just put together a horrible lap. I mean, it wasn't just this moment. I mean, certainly that was what, running out of gas ended his chances, but it started way before that. It started the day before in terms of lack of execution for the team and driver.
Yes, and we've seen this in a lot of weeks to where they haven't had the speed that they're accustomed to having, and it haven't had the speed that their teammates have had. So exactly what is it? Where's this line of communication? I know we go back to early in the season with Chase's injury, missing time when everyone else was working on their cars and working with their drivers. And we're seeing the same thing, with his teammate and Alex Bowman with the races that he missed. Neither one of them have had the speed that we are used to seeing from these two drivers. So you have to understand that they got behind, and when you're behind trying to catch up, it makes you do things that you're first not comfortable in doing, and second, you haven't had to do these, so you're not really sure how to go about it. And when you're not used to being in that situation, you're not exactly sure of the timing of that. So I think a couple of things. It does sound like that maybe Allen was given some wrong information as to how far they could go that he relayed to Chase, and that's what they went off of. I understand him not wanting to discuss all of this. It does no good to discuss it. It was a mistake, and mistakes do happen in the sport, and you try to learn from that. But this certainly was costly, and I'll say costly in a way that it took away any chance that they had. I do not believe that they, as the rest of the field, didn't have anything for William Byron. I honestly believe they couldn't have got on any strategy that was going to put them in front of their teammate yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly saw that. Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, Kyle Larson at one point. A lot of drivers seem to have really fast cars, but again, everybody seems to be running the same speed, and it's a track position game right now on road courses. You bring up a great point, DJ. I mean, this is Chase Elliott's 8th season in the Cup Series. He's never missed the playoffs, and he's never really been in this position. To your point, even though I think he was, he's winless his first couple of years in Cup, but I don't think they were ever right on the cut line. Certainly the way they have been this year, below the cut line so much. And this is new for Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, now we know with Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, both of them aren't locked in. We know one of them at least isn't going to miss the playoffs. So that means two major sponsors here, Ally for Bowman, Napa for Chase. At least one, maybe both, doesn't make the playoffs. And I've heard you kind of touch on this before. What kind of knock-on effects, might that have for Hendrick Motorsports if they don't have these really big companies a part of the playoffs?
Yeah, this is something that you don't want to see, because we value all of the sponsors in the sport that are willing to come in. And of course, they all understand when they come in, there are no guarantees when you come in. That's, you have to perform at a high level with the intensity and how many good teams we have in the sport this day and time. It's just not a given. And then you look at both. I think that maybe Hendrick Motorsports and gets a little bit of a pass here from their sponsors, because they have performed over the years. Alex Bowman and Chase have both won races over the last few years. They found themselves in the playoffs. Chase obviously winning the championship. So there are a lot of good things that have happened. I think that both, though, are maybe given a little bit of a pass here because of the injuries that they had and had to be knocked out of or taken out of the car for a number of races. Alex Bowman, you can even look at the penalty that they got. They would, without that penalty, they're in a much better situation of possibly making it in on points. They at least have that opportunity. They would have when they go to Daytona this week, but that's not the case. They put themselves in this position. They've had ample opportunities to go run better and try to get a win or to gather more points, and neither have been able to do that. And again, I think it just shows you the value of teams and drivers being together for a full year, as other teams and their drivers are working and experiencing and becoming better. So it's not a good look for Hendrick Motorsports, obviously, that their two biggest sponsors aren't going to be in the playoffs. One of them, for sure, as you pointed out, isn't going to be there. But again, I think that these sponsors understand the value of being in the sport, and they do understand that, certain things are going to happen, and the possibility of years like this happening are out there.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.